And now it appears as though the government will once again advise Canadians against taking non-essential trips. CTV's Glen McGregor is standing by. All right, Glen, what do Canadians need to know?
Well, we're expecting an announcement today, probably from the health minister and possibly with the transport minister, about new travel advisory. So the government is going to advise Canadians against traveling internationally. It's a key distinction because those folks traveling domestically to visit family within Canada over Christmas should not be affected by this. And this is not going to stop people from traveling. It's going to say it's not a good idea. This advisory had been in place since the beginning of the pandemic back in March of 2020, was lifted only recently. So it is kind of a symbolic gesture to deal with Omicron. There was some discussion, we believe, last night amongst the premiers about going further. That is potentially limiting foreign nationals from coming into Canada altogether from other countries. Doesn't sound like that idea took off. And this is coming at a time when the World Health Organization is saying, hey, these kind of travel advisories aren't really effective because by the time they're put in place, chances are that the virus or the variant of the virus, like the Omicron virus, have already entered your country and is probably spreading in the community. And we think that's what's happening here in Canada. So really it's kind of a case of closing the barn door too late. So I don't think we're going to see anything like that. It's very likely the Prime Minister consulted the premiers on this last night because he has faced flack from them earlier in the pandemic on this issue, particularly from Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who was very critical, remember last spring and into the summer, about the lack of travel restrictions. And he was claiming all the time that people were coming into the country from other countries and bringing what was then the Delta variant with them. So I think this was a kind of a case, Jen, of the Prime Minister really wanted to get the premiers on side for whatever they decided on what kind of the approach should be from here on in.
Yeah, a couple things though. The warning or the advisory is to those who are leaving the country. There is a possibility you may not get back in the time frame that you wanted to, or if you do come back, you may have to quarantine for longer than you thought you might.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, we remember all those stories about people who had traveled abroad, who had gone south for the winter, coming back to find that they would have to spend time in quarantine hotels awaiting a negative test result. But this is a different situation now. We're now at we think Omicron is pretty much in every country. And the people who are traveling, by definition, are fully vaccinated because in order to get onto an airplane in Canada, you need to be. So it is a sort of a different landscape right now. But yes, they are making that warning. That advisory is given because it covers them if they decide in weeks and months to come that more restrictions are required, more elaborate testing possibly, maybe a return to the testing for everybody coming in. And keep in mind that Canadians who leave the country for less than 72 hours, and that's almost entirely people making short trips to the United States, when they return, they don't have to be tested either by land or by air or by sea. But that could also change. It could be a change there where you require that test again, no matter how long your trip, particularly for air travelers. Harder to implement at the border, much more restrictive in terms of people who want to go cross-border shopping, drive from Toronto down to Syracuse or Buffalo to do cross-border shopping before Christmas. That's more impediment to them. So we're going to have to wait and see. We don't know exactly what has been decided other than that advisory. We don't know what else the government is considering at this point, but they are putting Canadians on notice that your travel plans could be affected.
All right. Appreciate the update. Thanks so much, Glen.